I've been a fan of anime practically my entire life. Some of my earliest memories are anime related. Not that I knew the difference between anime and cartoon back then. My actual earliest memory is falling off my father's shed headfirst onto a Wendy house. I can't imagine why that was my earliest memory. Like most children, my anime journey began with Pokemon, Yu-Gi-Oh! And Digimon. And on occasion Blade, but at one point Blade tried to kill me, so not the biggest fan of that series. Though something I did become a big fan of was the Digimon franchise, as you can tell by my lovely shelf. And this is my literal childhood teddy. This Gatomon, sorry Patamon. This Gatomon here, she is my literal childhood teddy that I have had since year one. If you look at her eye, it is going to focus. I've got continuous mode on, it's the wrong one. But if you look at her eye, you can see there's a big crack in there. That's when I got caught in the drawer and it broke off. And my teacher was very nice and glued it back on. Mwah. And funny enough, in one way or another, a lot of my anime journey can be tied back to Digimon. If, like me, you grew up in the early 2000s, you probably remember there was no Crunchyroll. There was no anime available. There was no words. There was no available streaming service to watch anime on in the UK. If you wanted to watch anime, there was only two ways. One, wake up at 6 AM on Saturday morning in hopes that today is one of the days that anime was being shown on TV. Or two, have someone bless you with a VHS copy of wherever the hell I put it. There it is. Have someone bless you with a VHS copy of the series, which was often done by finding them at a car boot sale. And yes, this is my literal VHS copy from when I was a child that I'm pretty sure my mother did get at a car boot sale for me. Speaking of being given VHS, when I was about 7 years old, my father gave me something. As soon as I remember where I put it. My father gave me something. This! My father gave me this! Why did I put it behind there? He gave me this copy of Ghost in the Shell. Somehow he didn't realise that this wasn't an appropriate thing to show a 7-year-old. But from that day, my life was forever changed. Somehow he hadn't realised that this was not a child-appropriate thing to show someone of the age of 7. However, from that day forward, my life was forever changed. This isn't to say this was the first time I'd ever watched anime. By this point, I'd already taken an interest in Japanese culture and anime, and was what most people today would have called a total fucking weeaboo loser. But I was also 7 years old and very impressionable. However, Ghost in the Shell was the moment I knew, oh, I want more of this kind of cartoon in my life. I think my father realised that he had messed up. I think I put it there because there's nowhere else to put it. That makes sense. I guess I could do that. There we go. Perfect. It fits perfectly. Yeah, I think my father realised that he messed up by giving me that copy of Ghost in the Shell, but he also realised that I was completely enamoured by the series of anime. So he went out and he brought me the first 4 volumes of Dragon Ball. Not only was I severely dyslexic as a kid, but I was also severely undiagnosed as a kid. And trying to read these books left to right, the only way I'd ever been taught to read books as a child, just didn't really make much sense. And also the pictures seem to have been going in reverse. Something that happened this side seemed to have started this side. But if I was reading the way I was supposed to be reading it, the way I've been taught my entire life, I should be reading it this. But this seems to happen after this. It never really made any sense to me as a child, so eventually I just gave up on trying to decipher this ancient lost language and stopped reading manga. There was a day when I was dragged to some of my relatives' birthday party, get-together, anniversary, I don't know, I was like 6 years old. I didn't want to be there, but I couldn't be left at home because last time I was left at home, I burned the house down. In my defense, only once was intentional, the other two were accidental, and I take full responsibility in blaming my older brother for that, because he should have been watching me. While at this party with all these people that I could not give two shits about because I'm 6 years old, and I don't know who any of these people are. I know that's mother, that's father, that's brother, that's sister, that's other sister, and hey, that's the guy that gave me 50p every time I see him. I'm going to talk to him real quick. But apart from that, no idea who any of them were. So I did what every child probably did when they were dragged to a relative's house. I went exploring. I went and snooped around a stranger's house and only got mildly traumatized by what I found in certain rooms. Eventually I wandered into my relative's empty lounge, and in the corner of the room was the holy grail of the early 2000s. A state-of-the-art, top-tier, super expensive 30-inch TV that could crush me. But not like a 30-inch massive monitor, not one of those tiny, like, I don't know, 20-inch with the massive fuck you speakers on the side. These ones, yeah, one of those. And I knew I was in for a good time. I don't remember if the TV was already on or not, but I remember on the screen was this weird looking show. It kind of looked like Digimon, but Tai and this other character looked weird. Like, I recognized Agumon and Patamon, but that looked like Tai, but taller. And I don't know who that blonde kid is. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to watch it for very long before my parents found me and dragged me back to the backyard to socialize with all my cousins and siblings and relatives that I don't give a shit about because I'm 6 years old and I just seen the coolest fucking shit I've ever seen in my entire life on a massive TV that was big enough to crush me, but I wasn't allowed to go back inside. But that memory never left me. Years later, I would actually end up stumbling across that exact episode, and I can tell you exactly what it is. It was Digimon Adventure 2, episode 41, and it's an episode where Tai and TK go to France and fight the Mamimon. And this scene, right here, this is the exact scene I saw all those years ago. And it was really surreal actually seeing it and being like, hey, that's the thing from years ago. It wasn't a dream. It was real. I didn't imagine it. You remember that? Imagining a series that turned out to be real, but no one else seemed to remember it and you couldn't find it? Crazy times. Like most children who grew up in the early 2000s, outside of Yu-Gi-Oh!, Pokemon and Digimon, which occasionally played on Saturday morning Cartoon Network, the only other exposure I had to anime was Ghibli. Took nearly a decade for me to realize that this isn't what Japan is actually like. It's crazy that some people still haven't realized that. Some fully grown adults still think this is what Japan is. At least I realized young enough to not sound like an idiot. I still sound like an idiot, but that's a whole other story. Around the age of 8, my parents finally decided I was old enough to partake in the ancient, lost, other adjective to define old ritual that every child in the early 2000s took place and took part of in the UK. The ancient, lost, other adjective that I can't actually think of, ritual of going to Blockbuster Video. When I was 8 years old, my parents took me to Blockbuster Video to rent out my first DVD. Though I'm pretty sure it was actually a VHS. In my local Blockbusters, there was obviously the kids section that my parents tried to push me towards. But slightly further down in the building, there was the teenager section. And in that section, there were 2 shelves. Not an entire gondola, not 2 massive racks, 2 small shelves, like, I don't know, 3 foot by 3 foot, 3 foot shelves, like 2, they're probably, I don't know actually, they looked big to me, but they were probably smaller because I was a kid, but there were these 2 singular shelves devoted to anime. These two shelves were always made up of the exact same animes. And I could go back each Friday and see the exact same anime in the exact same place. Which I now realise saying aloud is obvious because it's a fucking Blockbusters and, it's a rental service. They rented out the DVDs and then returned them, and the Blockbuster employee put them back on the shelf. I may have been dropped on my head as a child. That's my excuse for not realising that beforehand. Either way, on those shelves, there was always the exact same mainstream, as much as anime was mainstream back in the day, box sets. There was Yu-Gi-Oh!, there was Pokemon, there was One Piece, and there was Naruto. I'm pretty sure there was additional series as well, but I don't remember them. But I remember seeing the front cover for Bleach. I don't know which one it is. It's the white clothes with like the black spiky hair and I think it's got an eye patch. I remember seeing that front cover very vividly. I remember that box set like so clearly. I remember seeing that all the way back then. I don't remember the rest. I feel like one was Inuyasha. I feel like I see red and white, like the red outfit and the red hair. But yeah, there was a very limited selection of anime back then. If I wanted to watch anime, those were my only choices. Outside of Saturday morning cartoons, which just played a random cartoon anime that I didn't even get to pick, unlike kids today who can pause live TV. Spoiled little bastards. Do you remember how revolutionary that shit was when you were a kid? Do you remember how awesome it was as a kid actually, before you could pause TV? When like you'd be waiting for the cartoon break, you're like, gotta pee, gotta pee, gotta pee, gotta pee, gotta pee. You run off suddenly, you run off, gotta pee, gotta get, fuck, just got a fucking massive electric shock. Oh, wow, that fucking hurt. Oh, I was doing a bit, but Jesus Christ, fuck. It's got a massive electric shock from my big toe. That was, wow. Oh, Jesus Christ. Whew. That hurts, it tingles. Ah, Jesus. Wow, my toe is like throbbing. What was I saying? I saw the thing. Have I said that already? I saw something out of the corner of my eye and maybe seeing things again. This is a terrible take. But yeah, do you remember being a kid? We had to like pause the TV. Well, no, you couldn't even pause the TV. You had to wait for the break to sprint off to go for a piss, grab a snack, do whatever, and then you'd hear from downstairs, shut on, you'd sprint downstairs, nearly break your leg, and then the thing like, okay, I missed 7 seconds. What have I missed on the TV show? That shit was awesome, man, as a kid. It was so exciting. Now it's like, man, I need to pee. Just pause, wander off, do whatever the hell you want, come back half an hour late. Oh shit, right, yeah, I was watching TV, I forgot I paused that. Man, back in the day, it was like, I need to go pee, wander off, forget what you're doing, come back 20 minutes later. Oh shit, I missed the last half of the series. Well, that sucks. My toe is still throbbing, Jesus Christ. That was a bad shock. Did you hear that? I wonder if you heard that on the mic. Ah, Jesus Christ. Where was I in my script? Fuck, my toe is like, it feels like I got elastic bands like wrapped, you know when you like wrap elastic bands around like a limb and you feel like the fucking pulsating? Feels like that. Damn, that hurt. So when it came to anime, I didn't really have a choice. It was either watch what was on TV or don't watch anime. And if I had to get ready for school, I didn't have time to watch the cartoons or anime. I had to get ready for school, come back down, realise I missed half an episode just in time to watch the ads, so I got to watch 5 minutes of ads, then I go eat my breakfast, and I have to miss the second half. But sometimes your parents were like, you know what? Here's your cereal, sit in front of the TV, watch cartoons, be a good little shit, don't set the house on fire again. And those are the days you're like, wow, my parents actually do love me. I get to watch anime, and eat my Cheerios. It's great. Then as an adult you realise, yeah, they just wanted you to stay still, and it wasn't because they loved you, it's just because they wanted you not to wander off and set the house on fire again. My toe is still throbbing. That was I guarantee you actually probably heard that on the mic, right? I'm surprised is my sock actually singed? Nope. I expect to like see a burnt part of my sock. That fucking hurt. Jesus Christ. Returning back to Blockbusters, suddenly I had an entire world of anime to choose from. And by an entire world, I mean like 10 animes. But to my 8-year-old brain, maybe this was all the anime in the world. I didn't know how large anime was, and to my brain that didn't recognize these series, holy shit! So much more anime! Of course, the box sets were never in any order. They would have the box sets, and there'd be Volume 1, Volume 3, Volume 7, and Volume 9, but then, you know, what about the episodes in between? Yu-Gi-Oh! Was great. I remember it very vividly. The episode was... I'll be right back. This VHS copy, this is a DVD obviously, but this in VHS, I vividly remember renting this. It's the one where Yugi fights Panic, the evil, well not the evil clown, but the other evil clown, the one who used Castle of Dark Illusion that doesn't actually work like it does in the actual game because Yu-Gi-Oh! The actual series doesn't follow the rules for most of the series and it's all about believe in the heart of the cards. But this, I vividly remember renting out this VHS from Blockbusters and I wanted to watch episode 16. I wanted volume 6. Go back next Friday, guess what? They don't have volume 6. I think the next volume was like volume 9, which would be, what, episode 27, 28, and 29? Great, I've skipped like 15 episodes. I've skipped twice as long as the series. I have no idea what was going on at that point. However, at the time, that was all I had. So, you know, it was fucking awesome. I'd pay, well, my parents would pay for me to have an incomplete experience of watching anime. But I didn't really have an alternative at the time. Then my older brother gave me another one of those weird picture books. This one called Case Closed. I tried reading it, but it still didn't make sense. The story was backwards, the lines were all wiggly, the format didn't make any sense. After longer than I'm willing to admit I wasn't the smartest kid ever, I eventually figured out that these are the books that you read right to left. And these squiggly lines, they're words that I can read. When did I learn to read? Oh, wow. I think this was my first real memorable interaction with manga. I remember taking these into school in year 4 and reading them. This was not an appropriate thing for a kid to read, for the record. But I remember reading it. I remember reading it in completion. My older brother wasn't really ever into manga, but he had the first 12 or 13, 13 volumes, you can tell by the different logo here. 13 volumes, well, he had the first 13 volumes, but he's missing volume 12. But he gave me the first 13 volumes, like, here you go, you can have them, and just gave them to me. That's like £100 worth of manga by today's standard. That was pretty awesome. My brother's pretty cool. And these were the first real books I ever read, start to finish, and enjoyed, and made it all the way through. This is a cool story. I forgot about volume 12. I should reread Detective Conan sometimes. These are actually really good stories. I might make a video on Detective Conan. For most of my school life, I always found it difficult to read even simple books. But then, once I had manga, and once I understood it, I was reading a volume a day. I probably read more books in the span of a month than my entire class did in a year. Because I had manga. Granted, a lot of it is pictures, but I was still reading it. And they do say a picture's worth 1,000 words, so for every panel I was reading 1,000 words, so I think I read a lot more words than anyone else in my entire year, probably combined did. Because I'm that much of a narcissist to believe that. Jokes aside, I read so many books because I read manga. And it was probably Case Closed that actually got me into creative writing in the first place. And if my brother hadn't given me this channel may not have existed. In hindsight, I probably wouldn't recommend giving Case Closed to like a 8 or 9-year-old. But hey, I am who I am now because of it, so blame my older brother for anything you don't like about me. I've also definitely read hundreds, maybe? Let's think, yeah. Close to 100 more books than I ever would have done. Actually, you know what? Yeah, easily over 100. I've read easily over more than 100 books than I ever would have in written word. Sure, they're pictures, but they convey the feelings. Though my father was actually once called into school because they were concerned about my knowledge of how to kill people. That's not a joke or a bit for this video, that actually happened. My father being my father, though, he didn't care. And not that he didn't care, but he wasn't angry or he wasn't annoyed or he wasn't mad at me. He just kind of went, Dan, it's okay to know this shit. Well, it was like, Dan, it's okay for you to know this, but maybe don't tell your classmates how to disembowel a person. That's a word you probably don't know. Why do you know that word, you little shit? Yeah, I read a lot of Case Closed then. Legitimately, yeah, I remember my science teacher. I don't remember what she was called, but I remember the science teacher. I remember what she looked like. She was like, hey, after class, she was like, Dan, do you have a moment for us to talk? I want to ask you about the stuff you said in class. I don't remember the exact wording. She's like, I was like, oh yeah, I'm reading these books about murder. Oh, okay. That's fine. And then like 2 days later, my father showed up for like a meeting after school, like, hey, by the way, your son knows a lot about murder. We're a bit concerned about that. And my dad being my dad was like, yeah, it's fine, Dan. It's fine. You can know about stuff. Just don't tell your classmates about it. We good? We good. Okay, let's get out of here, son. When my 9th birthday came around, my birthday presents were Volume 4 and Volume 5 on VHS of Digimon Adventure 1. Digimon. Digital Monsters. I really should get my VHS player out. I want to rewatch these. It'd be fucking awesome. And of course, being my birthday, did I go to a birthday party? Did I have a big celebration? Did I do anything social? No, I binged both of these and played Chibi Robo on my DS. Chibi Robo Park Patrol. Fucking amazing game. Didn't realize I had the volume up, so I just kind of messed around a bit and then I watched both of these and had a really good time. But then I got to episode 15 where Tai gets the Crest of Courage after skipping the Gizamon. And it says to be continued. But that's the end of Volume 5, so I'm going to need Volume 6 now. So what do? I do what any self-respecting child would do in the early 2000s. I went to my father's eBay account and I looked up Volume 6. But something weird happened. When I was looking at Volume 6 to check out Digimon Volume 6, there was no Volume 6. Weird. The reason behind this is they never actually released a Volume 6 of Digimon on VHS. They released the whole box set. That's Digimon Adventure 2, whereas Digimon Adventure 1, I must have put it somewhere else. But they released the DVD box set, but no VHS. After Volume 5, they jumped to like the Dark Masters arc. But if you do look up Volume 6 on Google, you get this really cool Reddit post that shows these super cool VHS copies of Volume 6 to 11. But these aren't real. Even so, it is super cool to look at, but there are some minor inconveniences. Inconsistencies. Not inconvenience. This is a fan-made thing. There's no inconvenience here. They're just love and affection. If you look at Volume 7, which would be episode 19, 20, and 21, it shows Sudamon. But Sudamon doesn't show up until episode 36, and Volume 9, 10, and 11 have Demi-Vmon on, despite not showing up until Adventure 2. To my 9-year-old brain, obviously, if there is no episode 16, that must mean Digimon ends after episode 15. There is no episode 16. I spoke to my brother about this, and he seemed to disagree. He was convinced there was an episode 16. He was convinced there was an entire series beyond episode 15. But to me, I was like, no. I've looked it up. There's no episode 16 to be brought, so obviously, there's no Digimon. And we argued for a little bit until he eventually showed me to this new, weird website called YouTube. And in the search bar, he typed in Digimon episode 16. And right there, in all its majestic glory, was Digimon S1 E16, The Arrival of Skull Greymon, Part 1 of 3, Eng Dub, Espanol Sub. Man, those were the best days for anime, right? When you just watch full series on YouTube. Fucking illegal, very highly illegal, pure piracy and definitely not okay. But man, as a child, that was fucking grand. Suddenly, my eyes were opened wide. If I wanted to watch more anime, I could legally do so with this new website that my brother had shown me. Because there's no way my older brother would have done anything illegal. He's not a criminal, so obviously it must be legal to watch on this website. To be fair, as a child, I probably didn't understand the concept of piracy or illegality, illegalness, illegality, illegal, illegality? Is that the word? Illegal. Or the legal stance on being able to watch anime. I can understand the concept of illegal and not illegal. Well, I kind of could. But the idea of piracy, as a child, doesn't comprehend that. Maybe this isn't ethical. This thing that's showing this thing for free, maybe that's not ethical. This episode had everything on it. All the episodes of Yu-Gi-Oh! That Blockbuster didn't have. All the episodes of Digimon. Someone even animated the picture book of Case Closed and uploaded it to the website. It was wild. That night, I stayed up all night watching as many episodes of Digimon as I possibly could. And by all night, I mean like an hour and a half before my bedtime at 8 p.m. From that day on, if I wanted to watch anime, I legally could on this brand new website. There was no legality involved here. Actually, no, there was no legality involved there. No legal issues involved here. It was totally legal to watch as much Digimon and other animes as I wanted on this website. To be fair, my brother was like 13 when I was 8. I don't think he understood the idea of illegal piracy either. I just think he saw this website and was like, hey, I'm going to prove my brother wrong because that's all we did as siblings. And he was like, yeah, here you go. And I was like, okay, cool. I'm going to sail the 7 seas for the next like 10 years before I realised it's actually a bad thing to do and maybe not the best thing to do. A year later, my parents decided I was finally old enough to have my own laptop. And I discovered, well, you give a child a laptop, they will discover a lot of stuff on the internet that maybe they weren't supposed to. But I did also discover this website called DBZ Zone. Not Dragon Ball Z Zone, but it's long since gone. I've tried finding screenshots for this video, but it doesn't exist anymore. But it was this amazing website with just the words DBZ / or hyphen zone in like a green neon text in like a bubble. It was a weird website. But when I entered onto this website, there were pages and pages and so many pages of anime that I could just watch for free. Didn't have to pay for anything. It was just there. I no longer needed to know the name of the show I wanted to watch or look up. I just had to click on it. I saw something I liked. Yeah, I'll watch that. In that moment, my anime world exploded. No longer were there only a dozen or so animes in existence. Now there were, I don't know, how many pages does this have? And in essence, infinite amount of anime to watch. Many of which were in this, I just spat fucking everywhere, didn't I? That was fucking revolting. Jesus Christ, I just spat literally everywhere. I'm so sorry you see that. Many of which were in this weird language I didn't quite understand. And being highly dyslexic, couldn't even read if I had the subs on. If they even had sub, because this was a totally legitimate website that I was watching this on, totally, and they had totally legitimate subs. Among all these animes, there was one particular anime that existed called Mega Man Battle Network. And it was the anime version of the video game Mega Man Battle Network. Battle. Why do I have so much trouble saying battle? Mega Man Battle Network. And I loved this game growing up. It most certainly does not hold up today, but that's another video topic idea. Even so, I binged Mega Man Battle Network. I did it again, Battle. Why can't I say battle? Even so, I binged Mega Man Battle Network, the anime, until the episode where it stopped getting dubbed. And I think this was also around the same time I unintentionally discovered Digimon Tamers. But I watched the last episode first and saw the giant Jerry flesh head. And that shit freaked me the fuck out. I didn't even realize it was Digimon. I thought it was some knockoff series because it never occurred to me that Digimon had additional series with additional stories. Do you remember that scene though? Do you remember the hand puppet scene? Holy shit, Digimon Tamers like fucked me up as a kid. There was a lot of dark shit in that series. Digimon Tamers is actually a surprisingly dark series. I wonder if the series holds up today. Someone should make a video on that. As amazing of a service as DBZ Zone was, It also had a limit on how much a free user could watch, where you could only watch 1 hour of content every 24 hours. Which, thinking back on it now, is fucking hilarious. This illegal pirate site wanted you to just sign up and pay them to watch illegally downloaded pirated software that they did not own. Not software, content that they did not own. That's fucking wild when you think about it, man. This was annoying, but I also found out there was a super easy workaround for it. Because when I got my laptop, my older brother also gifted me with a code for the game Plants vs. Zombies. A strategy-based survival game where you use plants to fight off the zombie invasion. The game's pretty good, and honestly it does actually hold up to this day, I would say. One of the features in the game was the garden. An optional extra mini-game-like income thing where you can grow plants that zombies drop. And each plant that you grow drops coins that can be used in Crazy Dave's shop. It's a fun, idle farming system. The main problem is it relied on real-world time to work. Every time you watered your plants, they would drop either gold coins or diamonds. However, this could only be done once every 24 hours in real time. Fortunately, there was actually a really easy workaround for this. You just click on your computer's internal clock and change the date to the next day, apply OK, and when you relaunch the game, hey, it's 24 hours later and you can farm more coins. Turns out this exploit also worked for DBZ Zone. It was great. I watched so much anime back then. I would just watch anything at this time. I would just click on a random series and just watch the series. Maybe I'd watch one episode, maybe I'd watch more. If it was dubbed, it'd be great. If it was subbed, I probably wouldn't watch it because dyslexic. But man, I would just watch anything back then. I would just consume. So much anime. Back then, I couldn't get enough of all these amazing, unique stories that I'd never seen before. These commonplace tropes and generic ideas that I recognize as patterns nowadays. Looking at these series, I didn't recognize them. I didn't know what they were. They were the first time I'd seen them. To me, they were brand new. I'd seen the kind of stories that I'd never seen before on kids' cartoons. Stories that were targeted at a slightly more mature audience. It's crazy. Like, a lot of this content is trash nowadays, but back then, this shit was awesome. I also want to remind you that this was during the dark ages of anime. Or at least the first the early 2000s dark age of anime. Where liking anime was extremely unpopular, and it wasn't mainstream or cool to talk about. In fact, you were probably bullied if you talked about anime. Nowadays, anime is so mainstream that you're almost bullied if you don't watch anime or haven't watched the latest episode, whatever the trending fucking series of the season is. But back in the long time ago of my childhood, of like 15 to 20 years ago, nobody was talking about anime. That was way too much theatric there. But yeah, back when I was a kid, no one was talking about anime. YouTubers who talk about anime didn't really exist. It was still a new thing. Anime was still relatively unknown. Unlike today, where people are loud and proud about their fandom, some more than others. Trash! Sorry, got something stuck in my throat. Trash. It's not that bad. Zombies! Jujutsu Kaisen's not that bad, but I don't know. It's not for me. I don't think it's a bad series. It's just not for me. And the fandom has kind of become fucking toxic. Not all of them, but the loudest voice is often the smallest minority, but they're also the loudest voice, and damn, Jujutsu Kaisen has become toxic. What was my point here? Yeah, I crawled through glass so you can run on rubber. I don't think that's a saying. But be proud that you can be loud and proud about your anime weebiness. Because I couldn't as a teenager, I couldn't as a kid, I can even as a young adult. But now it's mainstream and you're cool if you like anime. I loved anime, and I could not get enough of these amazingly new, unique stories that at that point I had never seen anything like before. Being 10 or 11 at this point. I wanted to prove how much of a grown-up I was. I was no longer a little kid. I was in double digits. And then my mind suddenly went all the way back to like 4 years before that, maybe even 3 years, when my father gave me that copy of Ghost in the Shell. And I suddenly remembered that, hey, maybe there's more anime like this. Maybe no anime is like action, family-friendly, safe stuff. Maybe there's some darker anime out there. And yes, to a 7-year-old brain, Ghost in the Shell was dark. To be fair, it is a pretty dark movie, topic-wise, but to a 7-year-old, the graphics were pretty dark. Case Closed is a relatively gory anime, but I wanted to see more. So I googled goriest animes out there, and in 2008, 2009, I was presented with the most fucked up, goriest, darkest, most inappropriate content for 11-year-old ever. The most fucked up anime you've ever seen. Like Gantz, Elfen Lied, Death Note, and Higurashi. That real hardcore shit. That's right, I'm no longer a little kid. I'm ready for the grown-up anime. Not that kind of grown-up anime. Put the tentacles away and step away from the schoolgirl. Get out of my flat. Fuck off. How'd you even get in my flat? I'm gonna hit you with a fucking stick. Come here. I'm not entirely sure if the bit that I did earlier in the recording has been played in this video yet. That was unintentional. That bit was scripted, but it's going to play really well into the other bit if it hasn't been done yet. Suddenly, a whole new world of anime had been opened to me. The newest, bloodiest, goriest, most depraved, dark, fucked up, gory, bloody content I've ever seen in my life was right in front of me, and as a 10 or 11-year-old, I definitely shouldn't have been watching it. But fuck, man, that shit was good. And yes, maybe by today's standards, it's not, but to a 10-year-old who has never seen source shit, that shit was pretty powerful and bloody and gory and stuff I'd never seen before. There I sat, 10 years old, probably being exposed to a lot more graphic content than a 10-year-old should probably be exposed to, but what can you do? Yeah. But I thought this was the pinnacle of anime. In my mind, anime couldn't get any better than this. There is no possible way that there is anything more impressive than what I'm watching on screen right now. Oh my god, titties! Yeah. From that day forward, I was definitely an anime fan. However, whenever I looked up scary anime... Pretty sure I just saw a demon run across my doorway. That's fucking terrifying. I'll be right back. If I don't come back, I'm fucking dead. Hello? Why am I saying hello to a demon? Hello, burglar. I'm gonna whack the shit out of you if you are here. I'm gonna hit you with a fucking tripod. Hello? No, just my imagination. Great, I'm seeing things again. Ha! Nope, nobody. Okay. Nope, okay. I thought I had a wooden sword in there. Don't worry, it was just my imagination playing tricks on me, seeing things run across my doorway. That's not problematic at all. Haha! What was I talking about? Ah yes. Whenever I'd look up scary anime, I would always be recommended this one anime called Monster. And I checked it out. It looks okay, but it was also really long and really boring. There was so many chunks of times where just nothing was happening. It just... For my pre-adolescence brain that was being drenched in dopamine from other action series, it was just really fucking boring. This is a choice that I am so goddamn thankful that I actually made. Because if I had watched Monster as a child, I would not have appreciated it. And as an adult, when I As like an 18-year-old or however old I was when I first watched it, when I did watch it, I could appreciate it for what it was, and I enjoyed the story so much more than if I'd watched it as a child. For the next decade or so, I continued to watch anime with no real point of note. I had my degenerate era, I had my shonen era, I had my second degenerate era, I had my this is the coolest shit I've ever seen in my entire life, so I'm gonna act like the MC in real life era. Yeah, admittedly I was probably an actual weeb during puberty, I'm willing to admit that. But once again, I was impressionable at that age. I just kept watching, and the amount of anime I watched kept going up and up and up because this was my real weeb phase. This is also when I started my anime gaming channel and anime channel. I still remember one of those videos which was the top 10 anime boobs in anime. Yeah, that was a real video I made back in the day. This was when I was balls deep in the anime sphere and was just a complete degenerate anime weeb teenager. I didn't care what I was watching because whatever I was watching, it was amazing. And I enjoyed every anime I watched because I had this whole new world of actively available anime to me. There was no way I could get bored of anime because there was just so much of it and so many unique feeling series. As the years went by and the more animes I watched, I gradually came to find a kind of genre that I really enjoyed. And for a long period of time, it was slice of life romance animes. Specifically, Clannad and Clannad After Story. This is an anime that I have watched in completion probably close to 15 times. I had a chart for a while where I would chart every anime I watched and the amount of times I rewatched it. And Clannad is currently on 12 rewatches, and I've definitely rewatched it in completion a few times since then. And yes, I did just trip my word. I probably should have done a different take, but I don't really feel like it because I don't want to feel like I'm perfect. I make mistakes in my videos, and I think it makes me more human. I've forgotten where I was in my script. To this day, I would say slice of life romance is one of my go-to anime genres. However, this was the period between 2015 and 2015. That is a very short period of time, between 2015 and 2015. This was the time period between 2010 and 2015, which is when anime also really exploded into the Western world. It was already gradually getting popular, but these were the years where the fuse was really hit and the popularity skyrocketed. Whether this was because anime was becoming more and more mainstream, the proliferation of social media, introverted anime fans discovering they weren't the only person who liked the series and feeling comfortable enough talking about it on the internet with strangers, other weebs taking it far too far and being cringy, Tumblr fan art, companies realizing how profitable anime could be to the Western world, anime exclusive streaming services, or a combination of all of that, anime was now in the common zeitgeist and wasn't going anywhere. This wasn't a bad thing. Of course, there will always be gatekeepers in any community, and the loudest voice is often the smallest minority, but it meant there was a whole new way of non-anime fans discovering that they were anime fans, and anime was now available to a much larger audience. And those who otherwise never would have discovered their interest in anime if they had to actively search for it, were able to find an interest that they just stumbled upon. 2013 was the first year I went to Comic-Con. I think I still have a poster actually somewhere from the very first Comic-Con I went to. It had Persona 4, the animation being advertised on it, and Mirai Nikki. If I can find it, I'll put it up here. And for the next 5 or so years, maybe even 6 years, I went to Comic-Con every single year. And each year I did, anime became more and more mainstream until it was mainstream. And then 2020 hit and I didn't go to Comic-Con. Companies came to understand what the anime community as a whole enjoyed. Aspiring mangaka understood what sort of stories to write to be more likely to get picked up. Writers and animators understood the tropes that were popular in anime. And out of that came a formula for what worked and what didn't work as well. What would be profitable and what would be not as profitable. What would be successful and what would be more niche. Mainstream anime has gradually become more and more formulaic over the years. But I feel like this was the period where there was a tidal wave that irreversibly shifted the direction of anime with the massive amount of shonen being released. I believe this was the period of time that created the formula that we have today. Or maybe it was the fact that shonen anime targeted at teenage boys no longer appealed to me because I was no longer a teenage boy. And because of that, I started noticing just how much shonen anime there really was. Instead, I started to find myself being drawn towards a different type of anime. I love series like Parasite the Maxim, Steins Gate, Attack on Titan, ID Invaded, Terror and Resonance, Death Parade, Beastars, Blue Period, Kuddo, Monster, Paranoia Agent, Serious Experiments Lane, because each of them feel so unique and each of them have a very clear message they're trying to portray or convey. I think it's convey. Convey and portray? Why not both? Series that feel so unique and unlike anything I'd ever watched. Series that felt like they had an actual message they wanted to tell in their stories. There was no cookie cutterness to their stories. You couldn't use the formula of each series and run it through an anime release production mill and make carbon copies with different characters. I mean, you probably could, but it would be so clearly called out for plagiarism and trash, whereas other series, you can take the same concept and pretty much tell the same story with different characters. But each of these stories, they were so unique that you couldn't do that. The clear message behind them was one of a kind. And sure, you could tell the same kind of story or want to tell the same message, but you couldn't copy what the anime did. These were also the years that I revisited Monster, Paranoia Agent, and Serial Experiment Lane, and had such a greater appreciation for them. This is what my genre of anime is. Anime that makes you think. Anime that leaves an impact. Anime that makes something feel in your heart. Anime that ignites that passion inside you. Anime where it's clear the author had a passion for what they were creating. Anime that actually has an actual message that can be taken into the real world and you can take and reflect on in your own life and you think about. Anime that it's not just all wrapped up in a nice happily ever after bow. Anime where you reflect on your life after watching. Anime that is art. Anime that speaks to your soul and isn't just constantly hitting you with dopamine of cool action scenes. With the 2010s coming to a close, unbeknownst to me, my taste in anime was also changing and becoming far more refined. Not necessarily better, not more impressive than anyone else's, not better than anyone else's tastes, just more refined because I had discovered what the anime that I liked to watch was. And because of that, I was watching that kind of anime. Then the world opened back up, I got my anime tattoo, and I also got a full-time job. To be fair, I'm skipping ahead like 4 years there. It wasn't 2020 tattoo full-time job, it was like 2020, 2023 tattoo, then 2024 full-time work. But yeah, I got a full-time job, which I have now been working for over a year and brings us up to today, where I am watching far less anime than I did as a child, or even as a teenager, or even as a young adult. I am watching significantly less anime because many reasons. I'm passing on most of the new releases or the anime of the season because they just don't appeal to me anymore. I think they're probably great, I have nothing against them, they're just not my genre anymore. I'm also finding it harder and harder to find animes that I do actually want to watch, or animes that actually hit me in the way that I want anime to hit me. When I do find those animes, I know whatever the series is going to leave an impact on me for years to come. But they're hard to find. It's a very unique, specific, small sliver of anime that I'm talking about. And I don't know how to put those into words, because it ultimately comes down to, if I feel it, I feel it. If I don't, I don't. Eventually though, I think I'll run out of those animes. Eventually I think I'll watch all the anime that I will want to watch. Eventually, there will only be one new release every so often that I want to watch. Eventually, I probably won't want to watch anime. My entire life has been defined by anime. My earliest memories are anime related. My entire adolescence was anime related, me being a fucking weeb. And I don't know if I want my adulthood to be defined by anime. I am still an anime fan. I still have a massive love for anime. I still have a deep passion, and when I see the anime that I do see that does touch my soul, it will leave an impact on me for the rest of my life. But am I still an anime fan? And what does it even mean to be an anime fan?